listening to Rootbound, a podcast about plants for when you're stuck inside.
I'm still on summer vacation. Wait, what's that? Summer vacation is over? Actually, I'm sick.
Hi everybody, thank you for listening to this episode of Rootbound. I am the host of this podcast and my name is Steve. Now Rootbound is the podcast about plants for when you're stuck inside, and each week I invite a guest who joins me on the show to share with us all about a plant that means something to them, and then I share with a guest about a plant that means something to me, and through this process we can learn more about plants and learn more about each other. But this is going to be another one of those special shorter episodes. We're still kind of on summer vacation, but this is going to be a little bit of a different episode because I actually have my wife Karla here with me. Hi.
Hi.
And basically on this episode, I want to share something with you and also share something with Karla because I've been messing around with something downstairs in the basement.
Oh boy.
And I wanted to show that to you. So we'll have a little bit of background here first before I share it. You remember the eclipse episode?
Of course. That was really good. I really enjoyed that one. Well, I mean, I enjoy all of them.
Well, thank you.
But I'm a science nerd, so I really enjoyed all the science.
Well, very good. Well, hopefully you'll enjoy this then, because there is some good science nerdery that I'm going to share with you here. So that background noise you just heard is our cat scratching some furniture, which is quite a regular occurrence. They're all up here right now. They might be making lots of sounds. Hi, guys. No, nothing? Okay. No input from the cats. But, okay, so in that episode, I was introduced to this thing called the Flux network. Do you remember hearing about that?
Yeah, I remember that.
And for the audience who haven't listened to that episode, this is a network of towers that are run by various academic institutions. I actually think it's actually not even limited to that. I think like if you want to like do it yourself and had the money to build one of these towers, you could do it, is what I understand. Don't quote me on that, audience, and if you're from the Flux network and you're listening to this, anything I say that's inaccurate, feel free to correct me, but this is my understanding. So there's these towers, and on these towers there's a number of instruments.
Yes.
And they measure a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Including the flow of various gases in and out of a forest. So you have this tower that's up above the canopy of the trees, and it's able to measure CO2 in and out, and water in and out, I think methane in and out, which is really super cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's cool because there's this network. It's like over 100 different towers part of this network that are across North, Central, and South America.
Yes.
And so it's this really cool, huge amount of data. Like these things are gathering. I think they're gathering. I actually don't know the frequency that they're gathering. It's very fast because I guess on the eclipse episode he mentioned that that he was going to study the eclipse and see the flux of CO2 during the eclipse.
Like at various locations.
Right, yeah. And there was one particular tower that, like, there's a couple of them that were, like, right on the path, which, because there's so many towers, it's just, like, pretty cool that they're already there, they already have this baseline established, and they can measure that change. So that's pretty cool. The reason I don't know exactly the frequency they measure at is because you can actually download the data, like, it's just free to download from the Flux network.
Really?
Super cool.
That's neat.
Except they have it aggregated into periods of 30-minute averages, which makes sense because it's already
a lot of data.
It's already a lot of data.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't realize like how much a year is when you break it into 30-minute increments. It's like 16,000 data points or something like that, or more than that. And it's like a lot to do the math. More than 16,000, because actually I think the data that I'm going to talk about in a second is missing a month and some other chunks. Karla, you can do the math?
Yeah. So what is the math?
So how many 30-minute chunks are in a year?
Okay. So 365 days times 24 hours times 2, 17,520.
17,520 like individual data points per year.
Yeah.
Per site you could download, which is a lot.
Whoa. That's a lot.
And I thought that was really cool. I was like, this is really neat. I want to like play with this data and understand this data. So I was downloading it, and then I was like, well, this is interesting. What can I do with it? And you know, and the audience will know, because I've been doing that a lot on the show lately. I've been playing a lot of artificial intelligence stuff, making weird voices say things or making strange songs about various obscure plants. But one thing I've been doing a lot with AI, and you know this, Karla, is use it to like basically give me the powers of a coder.
Yes.
Which is super cool. And audience, I think the main point of this episode, well, not the main point, there's a lot of points. But one point I really wanted to like stress with you is like one of the coolest things about these new AI tools is being able to give you the power to code stuff, because basically you can ask it what you want in plain language and you can get back the results. So a couple years ago, if I downloaded this data, I wouldn't really know what to do with it. Maybe I could make a chart in Excel and see like the squiggly lines. But that's not very good on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, okay, how could I like explore CO2 flux data in the realms of this audio program that we're sharing with the audience right now?
Did you make a song?
I did, but I didn't use like a AI song.
I know, but like, did you feed the data into the system and then made a song out of that?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like a fluctuating song?
Yes, exactly. I mean,
wow.
And it's you know, it's not quite as compelling as the other like AI generated songs because it's very like programmatic. But basically, what I did is I took.
But can I just get you to pause for a second?
Yeah.
Like it's actually hilarious that I know so well exactly what you were gonna say.
Yeah,
I just guessed. It just shows how well we know each other.
Absolutely.
I suppose that's good after being married for so long.
Absolutely. Well, I was down in the basement messing with a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure you heard random marimba sounds every now and then coming out
No,
of the basement.
I was talking to my parents, so I had
I've been
like
doing
my
this for
headphones
like
on.
3 days. Trying to get it to work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was, the AI tools can do a lot of stuff for you, but still there's lots of tweaking and fine tuning to get things to work. And even some stuff is not like optimal. I think the sound is like what I wanted, but there's some other, there's some visuals that I might post on social media later that are not quite there. So the visuals you're going to see, the audience probably won't see, but it's going to help us kind of talk through what we're hearing together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you also going to show me the charts you generated from the data?
Yes.
Is that part of the visual component? Okay.
Indeed. So we'll be able to see that,
That's
which is pretty
cool.
cool. So what I did, I was like, okay, there's all these different sites, over 100 different sites. I was like, let me pick one that's really nearby. And so there is a Ameriflux tower at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute. That's that place in Front Royal we drive by way to my grandma's all the time.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great.
And so that's this big, they do a lot of
Can
various...
one visit it?
I think so, even though I think, also don't quote me on this, audience. I think this is one that needs like some kind of appointment to visit. And I think it's not as open.
I
it's
see.
more of a research
That makes
institute,
sense.
I think,
I mean,
understand.
makes sense
But
to
also
make an
Smithsonian
appointment.
people get at me about the details. I'd love to come visit. I'll do a show there at that place. I'll do a show from the top of the tower, which would be pretty cool.
That
if that's
sounds really
possible.
great.
But yeah, definitely not expected. But anyway, I found the data from that tower. There's a tower there.
Neat.
I saw it on Google Earth. It's like this scaffolded tower that's up above the canopy, and it's a pretty big chunk of that kind of Shenandoah forest there, which is
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I downloaded that data, and I took just 2022, which is the latest data that was available. That went from,
Okay.
I think they went back as far as 2016. There's a lot of the earlier data is a little bit messy because probably, when you're set up a new device, like a lot of, there's probably lots of times where you're messing with it. And even 2022 has a couple gaps, which I had the code just kind of pull out. So
There's nothing from 2023?
not yet. I think they will publish it, but I think
Oh, I see.
they're getting it
processing
ready
it
as
or-
a data
okay.
product and
Makes
stuff.
sense.
So they are still actively doing it, from what I understand.
Cool.
But 2022 is the latest data they have
Got it.
published
I
in
see.
these 30-minute intervals. And then I spent a lot of time of how can I turn this into sound? And the first thing I figured out is that 30-minute intervals is just too much. The song is either really long or
really
it's
fast.
super frenetic, and it doesn't really give you the idea. So what I did is I averaged it down to 12-hour intervals,
Okay.
which I think gets us to 600 and something. I mean, 365 times 2. But it's like I said, it's a little shorter because I'm missing December in this data set.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, well,
right.
I didn't account for that in my calculation.
yeah,
there.
anyway. So that's
Anyway.
my data is a
Cool.
little less than the full amount.
Okay.
And so each note you're going to hear is a quarter note. Well, it's broken up into quarter notes. So every quarter note represents one 12-hour unit of time, the average CO2 concentration is what the particular data point I have. So it's at parts per million.
I have a question for you. You know that 1 month that is missing?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could have extrapolated what the data point should have been based on the previous data points?
Not for just a year, but for multiple years I probably could have, because and that's what is very interesting, is how the CO2 concentration at the canopy of the forest changes, over time. And so, if I had more time, I could take all the years in the missing month. And I don't know why December's missing. It also might just be a failure of what I did somewhere, that I lost December in some data processing somewhere. Like, this is not data science. This is a weird podcast experimentation. Experimental music.
Experimental podcasting.
But theoretically, if you're, this is what's so cool about like using those tools, is like you can have a weird idea like this, and then you can talk it through, and then you can just get it to happen. So theoretically, Captain's got his paw stuck. There he goes. Hey buddy, you okay? Captain always gets his paws stuck on stuff. Theoretically, I could go back and get all the old data, and then basically like make a model for the month of December, and then extrapolate into. Yeah. But I'm not going to do that. Audience, if you want to do that and make a new version of this, feel free. I'll put the data on on the website that you can download. Actually, just download it from Ameriflux.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all there. You can do it all.
Yeah.
So every note you're going to hear, it's quarter notes for every 12-minute. And then what I did is I took all of the data and I quantized it into 2.5 octaves. So basically, you don't hear a, that'd be too many notes if it's like every reading, because there's a continuous scale of CO2, right? And that would just be like, right?
That's actually what I 100% expected the song to sound.
No, I could do that. But what I did is I quantized, so I separated into these chunks, and I did 2.5.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Cheeto is very concerned. It's okay, bud. So I quantized it into 2.5 octaves. I chose 2.5 octaves because the instrument I decided to use is a marimba, because it's made out of wood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and woodwinds don't quite work. I tried it with some woodwinds, and because they just go continuously, it was like too messy. I wanted something that has like a hit and a ring out.
Right. That makes sense.
And then if you have a situation where there's two notes next to each other that are identical, it just increases the length of the note. So you don't hear two quarter notes right in a row that are the same note. It'll just become a half note, or right? So you'll hear the whole sustain out. So you hear that.
How did you quantize them again?
I split it up into, what is that? What is 2.5 octaves? Like, I don't know, 20 different notes, whatever 2.5 octaves worth of notes is. So there's like 7 notes per octave, 8 if you include the top. So anyway, do the math. The computer did it for me.
Okay. So, no, but I'm saying, like, okay, I guess I'll listen.
Yeah, so it took all the data and it split it up into equal chunks for 2.5 octaves. And so if the data fell anywhere within one chunk, it plays that note. And if it goes anywhere within this chunk, it plays that note. And I have one little example for you here.
So that it's not like the crazy sound. That was just concerning.
So for example, the lowest note we're going to hear is anywhere in the range between 385 and 394 parts per million.
Okay.
That's the lowest C in the third octave, and that sounds like this. Maybe. So that's that. Okay. Yeah. And then the middle note is from 460 to 470 ppm, and that sounds like this. No, that's the highest note, which is 530 to 545 ppm.
Okay.
So,
and then here's another question.
Yeah.
Do you find, I guess this is over a year, so you won't be able to tell, but do you find that over time the notes keep getting higher in pitch? But it's over a year, so.
Well, that's an interesting thought experiment to do, because I've seen the data and now it's obvious to me what's happening. But maybe as a thought experiment, what do you expect to happen over a year? So we're starting in winter. What do you expect the notes to be like?
Well, they're breathing. There's less leaves, so they're like, quote unquote, breathing out less CO2 at the end of the year.
Right.
or at the beginning
In the
of
winter,
the year.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so there's
it'll
less
be lower,
notes,
yeah.
less notes, and actually more just even not necessarily lower, because actually what's interesting is you'll hear the lowest notes when there's the most photosynthesis, because that's the tree sucking in the CO2, and so the
Yes,
concentration
right.
of
They
CO2
breathe
is
out
lower.
oxygen, duh.
So you
I
actually
had it backwards.
have like the baseline more about the average in the winter, and then you start getting more activity as the photosynthetic activity happens, and then you
Yeah.
have the the change back into when the
Yeah.
leaves. And this was so cool about this is because
So I guess then my point still stands. Like over time, like if you were able to go from like let's say like 1965 to like 2024, eventually the data would all rise in pitch, right? Because there would be less
more CO2.
There would be less CO2 going into the trees, right?
Or no, there would be more CO2 in general,
Yes,
right? So you
in
still
general.
might get really low stuff because theoretically, and that's what, I mean, I'll put some links to some papers. There's super cool papers published by Ameriflux about these long-term studies of like what happens. So there's one I was
Yeah.
just looking at that was talking about the net carbon in or out of different kinds of forests in the southeast, and right, is
Yeah.
like a plantation or a recently cut forest or different kinds of forests, like
Yeah.
how much does it take in or out? And it's very different in different places. So for example, in the Shenandoah forest, it's a deciduous forest, so it's going to have this very different timing.
Yeah.
But an evergreen forest
Oh, it might-
might be more,
yeah.
might be less variable. I mean, there probably is some variability in the cold part because photosynthesis stops, when it gets
So
colder.
this is a super interesting way to visualize this data.
It's audiolized?
Yeah, well, audiolize this data, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Like to process this data, to just kind of take in as a human this data.
Yeah. I'm
That's
glad
really
you're
cool.
excited about it.
Yeah, no,
so-
I'm really looking forward to it.
So we'll listen to it. I've got it down to about 3 minutes, and we can talk over it. And I'll put a link to the unedited one, but we can kind of comment upon what we're
Okay.
seeing. And then audience, Karla and I are also going to be seeing an animated version of the graph that like corresponds, which at some point I might get up on social media. I want to make it look a little fancier before I do. That was kind of slapdash.
Super cute. Let's take a look.
Okay, good.
And take a listen.
Okay, here we go. Let's
All right, let's see.
All right, so
And
here
listen.
we go. So here we're in the winter now. You can see the dates in
Yeah.
January. And so, these little like pop-ups every now and then, right? And you can see the range.
Yeah.
I think I told you the wrong CO2 range, by the way. It doesn't get... And those
Pretty
longer
even.
notes are notes where you have more than 12 hours where you had the same average
Yeah.
reading.
There it goes.
We're still in February though. March, maybe there's some photosynthetic activity happening with the little dips. All right, March in Virginia, we start definitely getting some
Yeah.
leaves in March. April,
This is so pretty.
getting a lot more like regular now.
Yeah, this is really pretty. Oh, higher pitched.
So in May, definitely a lot of more. There's photosynthesis happening now.
Yeah. And a little bit more variability.
And also stuff starts to dip low now too when you get more photosynthesis, right? That's like where you get low means less CO2, right?
That's right. That's
So,
right. Yeah.
Right? So you have like trees bringing in stuff and then these big...
Oh, wow.
So we're in July now and like this is like prime photosynthesis time.
With all the green leaves. Wow.
Yeah, August as well. Lots of green in August in this area. And then we have now starting to shift into September, early September. Still pretty hot around here.
Yeah.
But it should start slowing down as we get into actual fall. Now we're in October, and I think the leaves are really changing a lot, and see now it's starting to even out.
I see that. Yeah, there's less jumps.
And I did tell you that I didn't use like the AI songwriting stuff to make this, but I did actually have AI continue this, not in a data way, but as in a more like the spirit of Carbon Flux. So when we get to the end of this, we're going to end the show with AI's interpretation of this weird marimba dance, and that's how we'll end it.
Pretty great. What a whimsical idea you had. I enjoyed it.
I was joined on this special episode by my wife and science nerd, Karla Arias. Data credit to the National Ecological Observation Network, or NEON, Ameriflux FluxNet-1F US-XC at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute. I'll put a link to the data in the show notes. If you like Rootbound and you want to help support the show, visit rootboundpodcast.com/support to find all the ways you can support the show, including supporting the show on Patreon. Rootbound is hosted by Steve Ellington, and I guess I can call myself a data DJ now. Is that a thing? Maybe. Music by Christian Gugascota. Fake ads by David Lonnie. You know, Rootbound is a podcast about plants for when you're stuck inside, but if you can go outside, appreciate the carbon dioxide flux.
Real fake ads next week!